our offices received, a lot of scrutiny, certainly. Everything we do has been looked through. I was talking to someone today. It's like you're being scrutinized through a microscope. I was like, a microscope? You mean an electron microscope? So certainly there's the white noise associated with politics since we filed the case on Pacific Lumber Company, and certainly we're seeing the backlash from our the 215 guidelines. So, I knew early on that there was going to be some issues over the 215 guidelines. When I took office, when we put that in, I didn't realize at the time that we would have a case against Pacific Lumber Company. But then the case came, and we had a statute of limitations to go, so we had to file it. It would have been nice not having to take on that so early in my term. But, once we filed that, I knew I was waging a two-front war, and been pretty much the same ever since.
Well, it's incredible what has happened since...
quick scrambling investigation to see just, what was going on. And then we realized there was a statute of limitations that we had to preserve, so we filed. Since then, we've, gotten an abundance of additional evidence. And the complaint, the amended complaint, you can amend the complaint all the way through trial. The amended complaint was designed to reflect some of that new information. Certainly, we have a much bigger picture of the sort of conduct they've been engaged in, not only in this instance, but before. And it is very similar to the conduct in our case, and it's admissible evidence under 1101B of the Evidence Code to show, that this was not a mistake. They've done this before. Concealed documents, try to intimidate government officials and whatnot. So, the complaint just deals with things like that. Hello?
No, it's okay. Somebody just walked in. I don't think they understand. We're having a talk show right now.
Fair enough. I thought we had been cut off for a moment.
No. Well, what's interesting to me is that, as you said, you knew that there would be some controversy. The controversy that has exploded after you filed the lawsuit is now a national story. Mm-hmm. You have a corporation that's based in Texas that owns the Pacific Lumber Company. You've got the Pacific Lumber Company bringing out ads against you.
Well, I think they own Humboldt County, too.
And one of the things that occurs to me, and I know you can't go into too many details because, after all, you're bringing a lawsuit against these people, but one of the things that occurs to me is if you thought that you were in the right and and the district attorney brought charges against you, my guess would have been you go to court, you get your best lawyers, and you make your case. It's very interesting to think that the best answer is to recall the DA.
Right. Well, the fact of the matter is we took on a defendant that probably is wealthier than our entire county. And certainly they probably spend in a week what my annual budget is for the entire office. What they spend in legal fees. Their resources are limitless. It's as if the federal government, if they took on a lawsuit against a business that was so much wealthier than the federal government, they would have a task on their hands as well. The fact of the matter is, we've taken on a corporation that is immensely wealthy, has immense resources available to it, has, immense political power. They're connected to all sorts of elected officials, appointed officials, and administrative agents, and on and on. So, of course, it's different because generally district attorneys don't have to take on defendants that are wealthier than them, or even the whole county.
Well, another interesting point for me is putting a recall effort on so early when, in my estimation, you can't really tell what your pattern is as a whole as a district attorney. I mean, you know, what does the recall effort begin when you were, in your third or fourth month of office?
Right. Well, I mean, true, you know, just from the straight statistical analysis, the sample group's too small to have a meaningful study.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like, you know, statistical jargon. But also, it's just not true. And I think that the data that's currently available would show it's not true. You know, in January of this year, we filed 44 violent felonies, cases involving violent felonies. January of last year, 39 were filed. February of this year, we filed 31 cases involving violent felonies. February of last year, 21 were filed. That's almost, you know, you're starting to get an idea of the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
March of last year, 35 cases involving violent felonies. This year, 38. Last April, 35 cases involving violent felonies. This year, 47. I don't have the numbers for last month or this month yet. I imagine the trend overall is the same, where based on the numbers we have overall, if they continue the way they're going, they've done the past the first 4 months of office, we're expecting a 20% increase overall in filing, which is probably going to be about 8,000 cases. So, I mean, deputies are working hard, just like they always have. I don't micromanage case disposition, so it's not like there's been a significant change on the deputies. They're the same deputies, still doing what they do and still evaluating cases the way they see fit. So, the North Coast Journal article, I happened to read that yesterday. They had talked to Judge Reinholz in the probation, Bill Burke, the head of the probation department, and the judge said no, there's no change in plea bargains or sentences, not significant, except for the one case, of course. Bill Burke's like, no, certainly we've seen some increase, but not, what the increase is all about is because there are more felonies.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, that's what those reports are all about, the additional felonies being filed and going through the court system.
Well, okay, so you bring up the issue of plea bargains, and this actually was the subject of an ad in the Times Standard yesterday. Not only was there an ad on page 10 of the Times Standard, but there was an article on the front page also about the same issue, which is actually 2 or more weeks old.
Yeah, I know. I think it was odd to me that the article came out time since it was back in, the police kind of old news. But certainly, one could imply that it was, or infer that it was to help bolster the ad, but who knows?
Well, no, the point of the ad was that when you were talking either during your campaign or when you first came in, actually, you're quoted here as saying that you would prosecute tree sitters to the fullest extent permitted by law. And what they're saying is that you're going soft on them, and they cite the issue of remedy. The tree sitter is in the tree for a year. Now, in the meantime, I've spoken with several activists since then who all say, actually, you're pretty tough on them. So you're getting it from both sides, Paul.
Well, and that's part of the game. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're not on any side except for the side of the law, which means we sort of pissed off. We're an equal opportunity. We piss off people equally. It's just the way it goes. That's our job. So, the ad, it's kind of funny because one thing the ad doesn't mention is that before they removed those tree sitters, they actually called us, John Benke, and asked if we would give immunity to those tree babysitters. And we said, no. If you don't want us to go after them for trespass, that's fine. But there's a court order, and that's a valid court order, and we're not going to give them immunity for that because we're backing up the court. But they neglect to mention that even prior to pulling these people down, they asked us to totally let them come down without any prosecution. And we said, we're not interested in the trespassing. If you want to waive that, that's fine. But violation of a court order belongs to the court and to our office.
So
we never offered, we never said we were ever going to prosecute trespassers to the fullest extent of the law. The March 7th letter, press release that they talked about, I could read it to you right now, I've got it. What we say is, if someone climbs up a tree to pull you down and you resist that person, you're exposing that person to death or injury. And that won't be tolerated, and that will be prosecuted, not trespassing. They misstate the letter, which of course that's part of their game, but I guess we can say whatever we want, but the fact of the matter is the press release it's available, and I guess we should make it public on our webpage as well for people to look at. All the media has it, the Times Standard has it, I'm sure you guys got it as well.
Well, I mean, to be totally fair, I remember that issue quite clearly because I remember activists coming up with arguments saying, oh, why is he saying that we're endangering people? Because that was the issue you brought up, that if people resisted and people were trying to get him out, that could create a dangerous situation.
Right.
And
I think I was even on the air.
Yeah, I believe you were. And then I talked with Remedy, and she mentioned that though she was locked down, I remember the description even of her lockdown. It was very easy for them to get her out, and she just had a chain and she let go of it, I think. And then, but that was different in other cases where people actually resisted for quite some time.
Well, you know what? That's all news to me. There is no mention in the police report of her being locked down at all. There's no evidence of that we had. What we had is an incident of supposedly her coming down. It's kind of funny because, I talked to the deputy about the case, first of all, because I don't follow a lot of misdemeanors. We have about 5,000 of them. And, he told me to stop. And then in today's paper, apparently there was some reference to her admitting that she was locked down. So he brought me the report, and I looked at it, and I was like, so there's just no mention of her being locked down. And we, of course, make decisions based on the evidence that we have at the time. And the police reports don't make, certainly the police reports I saw, don't make mention of it. And I'm not saying that the police failed to do their job, far from it. I don't want to be in a situation of saying that that's the situation. It's just, from the reports I've seen and the reports that the deputy saw, there is no mention of her being locked down at all.
Well,
so that's all news to me. And I wonder who she told that to.
Well, she told it to me.
Oh, fair enough. Well, that's good to know.
No, I'll tell you.
And she has Fifth Amendment right. She doesn't need to tell us that. So it might have been something that came out at trial,
I'll tell you
theoretically, but
my memory of it is that in an interview with her, or either with her or somebody else, and I'm almost positive it was with her, she talked about the situation. She had these lockdown things where you can hold onto a chain, and if you hold onto that chain, they'll have the person trying to get you out has to cut through the metal. Well, she relinquished the chain, which means they didn't have to do anything of that nature to get her out. So it's fairly a voluntary release.
Well, and that's the information that we have. That's certainly the information that my deputy relayed to me.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a case that I was monitoring in a big way.